Safe food, a prescription for a healthy life. Always wash your hands with soap and water before preparing food. Avoid mixing raw foods with cooked foods and wash your hands when you switch from one type of food to another. Make sure that the surfaces where you are going to prepare the food, for example cutting boards, are absolutely clean. Protect food and kitchen areas against contact with bugs, pets, and other animals. Safeguarding food during its preparation is safeguarding your health.
We're back with golf from the European Tour and day 2 of the European Open in Ireland, where Northern Irishman Darren Clarke was hoping to see his hard work continue to pay off after undergoing some intensive therapy on his putting. To the K Club in Strofan for the second round action, we join Andrew Coulthard at the 17th. Nice read for the birdie putt. He's 2 shots off the pace after a 70. To the 9th, Darren Clarke, second shot on this par 4. And he lands it close to the cup and would go on to birdie. He shot a 68 on the day. He's 9 under overall. Philip Price at the first hole. His third shot is a beauty as it finds its way to the bottom of the cup. He shot a 69 on the day and he's a co-leader with Darren Clarke. Stateside, we join round 1 of the Western Open at the 10th, where Phil Mickelson, the best non-major winner in the game, sunk a birdie en route to a 70. Two-time champion Tiger Woods, who's seeking his first victory in 4 months, would eagle the par 5 11th on his way to the round of the day. Later, Tiger suffered for his art at the 16th when he got some grit in his eye. It didn't affect the flight of the ball, however, as he narrowly missed another eagle. Instead, he settled for birdie and would go on to equal the course record with a 9 under par 63 for the lead. To the LPGA, where 13-year-old Michelle Wie was among 14 teenagers in the field for the Women's US Open. However, in the first round, it was a relatively ancient 28-year-old from Scotland who'd win the day, when Vari Mackay took the lead with the largest 18-hole margin in tournament history. To Pumpkin Ridge in Oregon to see how the opening day played out is Michelle Wie, opened with 3 straight pars, made the birdie at the 13th, but her quick start was quickly erased. Bogeys on 14 and 15, here with a par putt on 17. It didn't go. She was 2 over for the day. The favourite, Annika Sorenstam, 17th, stayed at level par. She hoped, but in fact she bogeyed. She's 1 over after a 72. He's Michelle Ellis at 2 under, trying to save par, knocks it down. She'd fade to a 74 though. And here's the player of the day, Mackay. The short birdie there at 12. As I say, she has a 3-stroke lead. Our play of the day is after the break.
CNN Sunday. First Iraq, next Liberia. U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee Chair Roberts and Vice Chair Rockefeller weigh in. Plus, exclusive, California Governor Gray Davis. He'll take on his critics. On Late Edition with Wolf Blitzer, only on CNN.
It's a place where old computers go to be reborn. Here, desktops get smashed, ripped, and torn apart. Thousands of computers are brought to this plant to be recycled, which has pledged to keep hazardous waste out of U.S. landfills and from being discarded overseas in third-world countries. With hundreds of millions of computers predicted to become obsolete by next year, more than a dozen state legislatures are considering implementing mandatory electronic recycling programs, some even targeting manufacturers to bear the cost. The proposals have met with some resistance. Even so, legislators pushing for new laws say some kind of action is necessary to keep the computers of yesterday from becoming the hazardous trash of tomorrow.
On the next Business International, was the war against Iraq justified? I'm Hala Garani. The British Foreign Affairs Committee releases its report on Iraq's weapons of mass destruction. We'll bring you full coverage and analysis here on CNN.
We head back to golf for our player of the day, which comes from the US Women's Open. Tracy Hansen with her tee shot on the par 3 12th, and it turns into a beauty. Taking a couple of hops on the green and then finding the cup for the hole-in-one. Hansen with the ace en route to a 1-over par 72, which was 6 off the pace, but did come complete with a World Sport Play of the Day. At the World Sport finish line, we mark American Independence Day with a hog fest masquerading as a sporting event. Staged annually in New York, Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest began back in 1916, and this year attracted a crowd of more than 3,000 for a 4th of July extravaganza. The winner for the 3rd straight time was Takahiro Kobayashi of Japan, who wolfed down 44.5 hot dogs at a rate of 1 every 16 seconds over the course of 12 minutes. The champion, who's considered the Michael Jordan of hot dog eating, was a little disappointed, though, as he'd hoped to beat his own record of 50-plus hot dogs. Doubtless he won't be celebrating with a meal out this evening. That wraps up World Sport. I'm Terry Badu. Bye for now.
President Bush, do you have the courage to stop the war in Israel? If you really want peace in the Middle East, then I suggest that it can be done in the following manner. Order Israel to pull all forces out of Palestine pre-1967 boundaries under a penalty of total blockade. Order Palestine, including their militias, to stop all attacks and respect the 1967 boundaries under penalty of total blockade. Either side will receive help from the U.S. and or the UN if either side is in violation of your orders. Either party violating the peace or sovereignty of the other party will be blockaded for 30 days.
Views expressed do not necessarily reflect those of CNN. Some calls have been condensed for the sake of clarity and time constraints.
Outspoken and to the point.
It's not about the substance of the story, it's about the idea people carry away from the story.
A heated debate.
Ranting and the raving of the Daily Mirror is extremely unhelpful, and I think it's a tragedy for their readers, frankly.
International correspondents turning the camera around.
The press has to cover this, so did it get it right?
Focusing on the journalist's point of view.
This is really a question for the media, the Western media particularly.
You've heard the reports, now hear from the reporters. International correspondents on CNN.
How can technology be used to help all mankind? Can it feed, sustain and power communities? To see how people and technology are driving a new future, turn to global challenges. This Sunday, Masked Menace. How Hong Kong is facing its demons. Fish out of water. Cleaning Kolkata's wetlands. And when the cold wind blows, Alaska taps a natural resource. Global challenges. This Sunday, only on CNN.
This is CNN.
Sing this. For she can carry a gun good as any mother's son.
For she can carry a gun good as any mother's son.
Sing it again.
For she can carry a gun good as any mother's son.
You're singing my part.
Tonight, comedy titan George Burns. He spent nearly a century entertaining us, much of it with his wife, Gracie.
Cheers.
What was that?
One for the road.
Remembering the genius of George Burns and Gracie Allen with their son, Ronnie Burns. Joining us, George's good friend, comedian Phyllis Diller. One of his comedy partners, Carol Channing. Comedy great Alan King, another longtime friend, and Larry Gelbart, the man who wrote the award-winning screenplay, Oh God, for George. Lots of laughs. Next, a very special edition of Larry King Live. What a panel we have assembled. Ronnie, his son, who is working on a photo essay book that we hope will soon be published. Phyllis Diller, the great comedian and a good friend of the late George Burns. Carol Channing, who partnered with George on stage and did an Emmy-winning TV comedy with him. Author of her own memoir, Just Lucky, I Guess. Alan King, the comedian and longtime friend of George. And Alan comes to us from our studios in New York. And the great Larry Gelbart, that's the only word to describe him, the award-winning writer for radio, TV, stage, and movies, friend of George's, wrote the screenplay for Oh God, which starred George Burns and which is one of the funniest films ever made. What kind of father was he, Ronnie?
He was great. They both were. He was obviously in love with show business. And he worked very hard. And of course, his whole life was that, and also beyond that, he loved bridge.
And he died at 100?
100 years old, 45 days.
He said he'd make it, right?
Oh yeah, that's what kept him alive after he had to retire, was the fact that he wanted to make his 100th birthday.
And for a long time, George was the straight man to Gracie, right? I mean, that was the comedy.
Oh, no, it started out originally where she did all the straight lines. He did the comedy, and it didn't work. And so they changed it around, and you got to remember, Mother was only 17 years old then. And then when they changed that around, the whole thing worked, and they went on from there.
Cheers.
What was that?
A chaser.
It's water.
Oh, certainly. I drink about 7 or 8 chasers, and then I do my drinking.
There's lots to talk about. You'll be seeing lots of clips tonight. But first, I want to get a read from everybody. Alan King, why did we, the collective we, love